Okay, so I told you one of the most important political theories of the global ethics, and we're going to go into the second one, which is John Rawls' theory of justice. It's one of the most influential theories in political philosophy. So it's good to know who John Rawls is. He's an American philosopher. And his theory has been very influential in defining what justice is. And his theory has been implemented a lot, or applied a lot in the implementation of a welfare policy, especially in the States. So, and a lot of global ethicists, they're trying to apply or borrow his concepts into global scale. And his theory is actually quite ingenious. It's very brilliant. So we're going to see why. Whose turn is it, Cherry? Right, so John Rawls' main question was, what is just and fair for everyone? This is a very, very important question because you have limited resources. So it's basically concerning, in any society or any state, there's a pie, limited pie, right? And this question is basically concerned with how to divide the limited resources, right? How can we distribute, or how can we divide the limited resources that we have, right? So say the available amount for use, the funding is like $1 million, dollars for a single town, and how can we distribute? It's all from like tax, and how can we distribute $1 million to everybody in the town? And it's a very important question, right? And his brilliance and the theory were these two concepts. The first one is original position. The second one is, I like this phrase. This is very, I don't know, I like English language, and this is a very nice phrase, veil of ignorance. So you have to remember these two concepts. When you hear about John Rawls, oh, my professor told me that I have to remember these two phrases. John Rawls, they just basically do these two concepts. So they're all have you ever heard about thought experiment? Thought experiment is basically an experiment that you are just doing your thinking. So you've heard about Einstein, right? Theory of relativism. And he basically developed his, the theory of relativism out of thought experiment. And one of the very famous thought experiments he conducted was, what if a human being, or me, can make a competition with the light? Nobody can run as fast as light, right? But what if a human being can compete with the light? What's going to happen? What if the human being can run with the light, at the speed of the light? What would happen? So his theory of relativism comes out of various thought experiments that he has conducted. And John Rawls, he basically did the thought experiment as well. It's hypothetical. He made a hypothetical situation out of his thinking. And original position is okay, so we have Cherry. What if we have Cherry? We know that she's from Philippines, and she already has a degree, and she has taught Korean kids in Philippines all these stories. But original position basically means we about a person, we basically get rid of all the details, all the attachment, personal, cultural, social, national attachments. So basically zero. We don't know anything about this person. Well, I don't know anything about myself, right? So that's what's called original position. So even though we have Cherry, we don't know what kind of nationality she has, what kind of cultural background she has. No, nothing, right? Everybody in the same original position, right? So when we try to answer this question, what is just and fair for everybody, we put everybody in the original position. We get rid of all the social, cultural, familial, like national circumstances, like ignore them, right? And when we try to divide or distribute the resources to answer this question, we do it at the veil of ignorance. What do you mean by veil? Just wearing a kind of veil, right? So if you just put the veil, and it's it's kind of translucent, but kind of it kind of blocks your vision, but then kind of you can see sort of outside, right? So veil of ignorance is basically we get rid of all the attachments and we try to decide the division or distribution of the resources out of all this ignorance. Like, so Cherry, she's in the original position, like Hassan is in the original position, Yerin is in the original position, all equal, right? No nationality, like you don't know like how rich their families are, like whatever, like, no, nothing. And then we try to decide what's the most fair and just for three people out of veil of ignorance. Nothing, no string attached. So that's why his theory was very radical. Okay, right. So basically, the original position, he nicely summarizes here. So, no one knows his place in society. I don't know, like, his class or social status, no one knows. Or his fortune, he's basically, whether he's poor or like rich, even his intelligence, he doesn't know whether he's intelligent or not. Or even, he doesn't even have a conception of good, no moral sort of theory, like moral conception. Or no, like, somebody can be like, no psychological propensity, somebody can be I, somebody can be E, extroverted or introverted. No. So everyone is equal, and this is important. So within this position, we try to choose what kind of principles of justice would apply, behind the veil of ignorance, So that was his kind of like a hypothetical situation. So he's putting all the hypothetical situations to like different individuals, and they are basically, if you're from a certain family, say you're from a rich family, or say in Korea, there's a great divide between 경상도 and 전라도, right? Because a lot of like political sort of policies, like welfare policies, are divided along the 전라도. 전북대학교 is 전라도, right? Divided along this line. But according to John Rawls' original position of veil of ignorance, basically we have to say, oh, I don't know where I'm coming from. And we're going to decide the welfare policy as if you don't really know. So it's going to be unbiased as much as possible. Okay?
Be explained and justified as fair and equitable.
Right. So I told you that John Rawls' theory of justice is a political theory. Again, political. Political theory is concerned with political institutions or regulations, like structures. To say we are planning to establish a welfare program in either where is Jeonju or Daegu, right? Daegu is in 경상도, right? In deciding this, if you're actually in a good position, because except the Koreans here, like, you guys aren't from anywhere, right? You guys aren't like from 전라도 or like 경상도, right? So you guys are sort of original position, right? But then just hypothetically speaking, you basically get rid of all the your homes and like where you're coming from, and in deciding where to build this program, you basically decide out of like ignorant position, So that was his definition of the original position. So that's why this sort of conception of justice can be applied to institutionally, right? And deciding like which kind of welfare program, or which kind of welfare like institutions or like political institutions if you were to build, which kind of like regulations or policies if you were to build, and let's think about the issues from the original position. Right. So if you were to remember another principle by John Rawls, then I recommend you to remember the difference principle. I'm going to explain this. So say we're trying to implement a welfare system, a welfare program, right? And this is what difference principle means is, okay, we have rich people here. We have poor people. He actually says disadvantaged and advantaged. It's just a nice word for the rich and poor, right? And the difference, what do you mean by difference? Difference. What does it mean? Type, difference, So difference between rich and poor people, right? So he's arguing that if you were to implement a certain policy, institution, regulation, it should not worsen the most disadvantaged or the poor people, the poorest people in the community. So, okay, I'll give you a hypothetical situation. So by implementing this policy, this it gives benefits to the advantage of rich people, and also it gives advantages to the poor people. If this policy does this, then is this allowed by difference principle? Yes or no? So difference principle basically says it should not further worsen the condition of the most disadvantaged people. So by implementing this policy, it enhances the condition of the rich people and also the poor people, then is this just policy or not? Is it difficult? Yeah, it's quite heavy, right? Okay, I'll just make it. Okay, so difference principle means. Okay, say this is the limit of the poor people. Difference principle says you shouldn't further worsen the condition of the poor people, right? So this is the difference principle, right? But say a certain policy enhances the condition of both poor people and the rich people, and is this policy just or not? Yes, right? But say there's a policy which worsens the condition of the rich people and worsens the condition of the poor people. Is this a just policy or not? Just policy? No, because it worsens the condition of the poor people. So his difference principle is really radical. I mean, it's quite practical. So in evaluating any kind of policy, for implementing any kind of policy, he always looks at the condition of the most disadvantaged or the poorest people in the community. So if it enhances the condition of the poor people, then yes, it's just. But then whatever and how much the grand words it has, if it worsens the condition of the poor people, the most disadvantaged people, then it's not a just policy. So that's what it means by difference principle. And equality principle is basically says all individuals are entitled for freedom, various rights. We're going to go into the details of what kind of freedoms are in the next. Right. So the second principle of justice, this is a difference principle. So it basically says that if you were to implement any policy or like institution, then it should be beneficial for the most disadvantaged people of the community. All right. And this is the equality principle. And is it equality of what? Is it equality of rights? Is it equality of resources? When it says equality principle, what is it? Equality of basic freedom. It's equality of freedom. Right? So it's the freedom to speak, freedom to own a property, freedom to move. Yeah, there are a lot of places where freedom to move is not allowed. Yes, there's a equality of basic freedom. Right. So when he says equality of liberties or freedom, it includes political liberty. For political liberty, the most important right for the political freedom is vote. So like voting is very, very important for democratic society. It's the foremost right for political freedom. And freedom to speak, an assembly, this is very important as well. And freedom of conscience, freedom of thought, to think and to write and to speak. And yeah, so these are like fundamental rights and the fundamental freedoms that we are born with. But we don't normally think of it like that often, right? And freedom to own a private property. Yeah. These are banned in North Korea. And this is the basic difference principle. It concerns with the fair distribution of resources.